Hello everyone, welcome to static concept videos pertaining to social issues and social justice. In this particular video, we are going to look at an important sub-theme of an important theme in social issues. So we are looking at caste in particular, and within caste, we are looking at changes in caste system. So if there is a question around what are the changes that we see in relation to caste system in contemporary India, this video essentially looks into that particular demand of the question. So we are looking at changes in caste system, and here we will talk about two people. One is Andre Bete, or let me just and the other is so you have Andre Bete and you have Dipankar Gupta. Now what Andre Bete, so what I'll do is I'll just quickly share with you what each of these have to say in terms of the changes that are there in the caste system. So the first point is related to firstly we will discuss Andre Bete and then we will discuss Dipankar Gupta. You are absolutely at liberty to choose either of them, right? And you can always borrow from both of them in case there is an essay, and this could be of great help. Now for Andre Bete is talking about three things, right? The first thing he says is purity and pollution related stuff. So he is saying that rules related to purity and pollution have become less stringent, right? So purity and pollution is there, but the observance of purity and pollution, the adherence to rules related to or pertaining to purity and pollution, there is more relaxation, right? People are not as particular about them as they were earlier. In fact, it is pointed out that it is primarily the upper caste, specifically the Brahmins, very traditional, conventional Brahmins, who are still a bit particular about it. But Andre Bete's argument is that for the most part, things have gotten a little more relaxed. And he uses a very interesting concept here. He says that earlier we had segregation. Earlier we had segregation and now we have separation. What does he mean by that? So he says earlier it was very clear that member of a particular caste will not sit and eat with member of another caste who happens to be a lower caste, right? But so this was segregation. But now he says that segregation is not to be found anymore, or it's not found that much. Now segregation has given way to separation, which means what? He says that an IAS officer, a government officer, will not sit with his own peon, even if both of them belong to the same caste category. But the IAS officer will sit with another IAS officer and have food, even if the IAS officer is from a lower caste category. So he says earlier we had separation, now we have separation. Earlier we had segregation, now we have separation. So that's an interesting argument. So that is the first argument, that purity and pollution related rules have become less stringent, right? They are not observed as strictly as they were observed earlier. The second pointer is to do with endogamy. So he says that caste does not determine marriage rules as much as it used to earlier. What is his argument? He's basically pointing out that earlier people were very particular about endogamy, meaning marrying within the group. But of late, what has happened is he's saying that there are more instances of intercaste marriages. So relaxation. So one could say court marriages. So court marriages are going up, intercaste marriages are going up. As a result, what his argument is that regulation of marriage according to the rules of caste, not really that strongly done anymore. And the third is to do with occupation. How is that? So for occupation, his argument is that caste-based occupations or this caste occupation connection is not that strong anymore. And he talks about the emergence of what he calls caste-free occupations. Right? So these are the three things. So he says the relationship between caste and occupation is becoming more flexible, right? And so education on the one hand, professional occupation at the same time, they have brought about significant changes to caste. So we have now caste-free occupations. So for example, the private sector, etc., etc. So these are three of the things that he's talking about. He's talking about purity and pollution, changes there, endogamy, changes there, and occupation, right? So that's your Andre Bete. Let us look at what Dipankar Gupta is pointing out. Dipankar Gupta is basically pointing out two things. He is saying that there has been a change from system to identity. What does he mean by that? He says caste system was a reference that was earlier. Now caste system is not that important a reference. Caste identity has become a more important reference. Meaning what? Every caste is essentially identifying itself as a singular independent unit. Earlier, castes always used to situate themselves in a broader systemic context. But now what is happening is every caste, for example, if you think about the Jats, now the Jats do not identify themselves as part of a system. The Jats are identifying themselves as independent blocks. So he says caste system, the idea of system over. Now we are talking about caste identity. And the other he says is from hierarchy to, again, identity, which is also an important argument, that caste hierarchy is something that is not so important. If you have to study caste today, then studying caste through hierarchy will not help, because hierarchy as a principle is not that important. Now we have identity. Every caste is simply talking about itself. Castes are not interested in fact, they do not pay attention to where exactly do they fall in the overall caste hierarchy. So hierarchy was an important concept earlier, perhaps, but not anymore. System, meaning caste system, was an important concept earlier, perhaps, but not anymore. So he says from system to identity and from hierarchy to identity. So these are 5 pointers, 3 to do with Andre Bete, right? And 2 to do with Dipankar Gupta. I hope you were able to make sense of these important pointers, and in all likelihood, you will be able to put this information, this knowledge to good use. Thank you very much.